Rosa would like to know, have you had an opportunity to study success stories in other urban centers or with other mayors?
Yes, there's a couple of mayors I'd like to talk about. I'd like to talk about one mayor in Milwaukee. He wrote a book called "The Wealth of Cities." His name was John Norquist. He was the mayor of Milwaukee, and he talked a lot about bringing together the environment and economic development opportunities and safety. And in his book, he talked basically about the aspect, when he talked about the wealth of the cities, he really was talking about the people of the city. Because a city has a lot of wealth in terms of the people, the assets that it has available to them. And I think that the experience that he showed me, and I learned a lot from him, was that we need to build on our assets. That's why when I talk about the Albury Arboretum, I'm really talking about them connected with King, the Ogontz Avenue Revitalization Corporation. These are organizations that were there long before I came along as a state rep. So the only thing I did is brought them together. And so that's one city. Secondly is Mayor Daley of Chicago. Mayor Daley has Millennium Park, which looks gorgeous. It's in the heart of Chicago. He's another one who's able to provide leadership. He had Millennium Park. He wanted to make Chicago one of the greenest cities in the nation. I think he has achieved that. So Chicago is one example with Dick Daley, Mayor Norquist in Milwaukee, who's no longer a mayor. He's another example. Those are two examples that I have observed in terms of watching how mayors have brought together the element of the environment and moving the cities forward.
I have another personal question, which is, I don't know if you're aware of, there's a middle school in Germantown that is dedicated to teaching the young people about the environment, and I was wondering, as mayor, if you would be willing to look into making more schools at a younger age where kids can learn more about trees from an early age.
Answer would be yes. I think that, when I kind of grew up, and I don't know if Jerry would recall this because he and I were saying, there used to be a school called Parkway. And Parkway, basically, it was a school that
I went there.
you went there, then you know. So yeah, then you know what I'm talking about, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's an example of using kind of the entire environment. And I think learning should not be something that just takes place in a classroom. Learning can take place from using the entire environment in terms of skill building. You can teach young people a lot of things if you use the environment that we have available. So yes, I would definitely be a part of wanting to promote that.
All right, we're going to take one non-environmental question from Ted P., who would like to know, whose question is that many youth are indoctrinated into a cycle of violence from an early childhood. As mayor, what is your grassroots plan to change this culture of violence?
Well, there's an initiative I'm connected to, organization called BAIL, Black Alliance for Education Options, and they have an initiative called Parents with Power. Because, Alex, that's where I really believe it starts. I just take my own situation. I was born in North Central Philadelphia. My mother and father, that's where I started out, and we moved from North Central Philadelphia to Germantown. My mother and father separated when I was 14 years of age. But it's a lot of the things that my mother and grandmother and others laid basic foundation about, going to school to get a good education, go to church on Sunday. It was those values. Well, the program I'm relating to you, run by BAIL, Black Alliance for Education Options, is called Parents with Power. And it teaches parents parenting skills. It teaches parents, it's kind of tough to be a parent today. It's probably, if not the most important job and the toughest job in the world, being a parent. It is not easy being a parent today. And look, when I grew up at that time, the only parental control of TV, you know how you have the thing that they had parental control, was my father, right? It was one TV, and they controlled what you got to watch on TV. Well, I know as a result of young people having TVs just about in every room and the internet and computer, it requires a lot to ensure that that the children are going to be going on the right track. See, I don't think you can what I call warehouse your kids. I don't think you can drop them off to someone else. I think if you're going to be a parent, you have to establish the roles of responsibility. But you also have to know what it means to be a parent. That's why I think this program, I talk about Parent with Power, talks about the initiatives of Understand Parent. The other program I talked about is something called Kids Zone, which again is on Ogans Avenue. I picked up the idea from Jeffrey Canada out of New York, called the Harlem Children's Zone. And the Kids Zone works a great deal also on parenting skills. I think in this day and age, in the 21st century, we have to do a lot to work on that. So you're correct in when you said about the culture of violence, because that, I believe violence is a learned behavior. And we have to find ways to unlearn that negative behavior. The Albury Arboretum is one example of one particular program that can begin to teach people to unlearn negative behavior. The Concerned Black Men is a program that does mentoring that can begin to teach people to unlearn negative behavior. Kids Zone is another example of teaching people how to unlearn negative behavior. So I'm a strong advocate of using what I call a public health approach to reducing violence and to begin to reverse that type of behavior.
Dwight, I just wanted to mention Kids Zone and Aubrey are partnering also in, not in this program, but in our after-school program for young kids. So we interact with them a lot.
That's another example of partnerships that need to come together, and we need to keep building on that. These are, see, today, this opportunity is really to say to the people of this city, is we got a lot of assets. We just got to use those assets and build on it.
Okay. The next question comes from DJ, who asks, as one of the largest urban parks in the country, Fairmount Park is sadly underutilized in comparison with other cities, such as Boston, Chicago, and New York. As mayor, how would you turn this around?
Thank you for asking that question. The first thing, I think we first thing we have to change the way that we govern and manage Fairmount Park. And that's very important to understand. Right now, we have like this secretive system about how we come up with Fairmount Park commissioners. I think, one, that process should be open. I think it should be transparent. I think that we should kind of get the community activists and the friends of Fairmount Park and others together to basically recommend recommendations to the mayor of the people who should be on the committee. That's the first thing. So I think who leads it is very important. I think the other aspect of it is we need to put together a very similar example that we have at the state level called the Keystone Park Initiative. And basically what they do is they use some piece of what you call the realtor transfer tax for the purposes of reinvesting into the state park. Well, we need a dedicated source of revenue also for the Fairmount Park thing. And what I say in my paper here is that I will work closely to try to come up with that form of dedicated funding. And you know, my staff person was giving my concept paper to a reporter, and the reporter asked the question, well, you know, you don't have the dedicated funding there. Well, you know, I've said publicly I want to hire more police. I want to reduce the class size for kids in public schools. I want to put more laptops on school table. I want to do something with school modernization. And that's kind of what my priority. But what I said I would do is I would work in conjunction with City Council to find a dedicated source for the purpose of investing in our park. The 92,000 acres or 9,200 acres that we have in the city of Philadelphia. This is a jewel and this is an asset. These two young men behind us have taken advantage of it in terms of Albury Park. We could be using a lot more if we create them. I just don't think it's been a priority in terms of our park. We need to make it a priority. It will be a part of my strategy to make Philadelphia a safer city by using the environment to be a part of my strategy. One of those legs on that table is the environment and its energy.